Hey everyone, this is Jane with Barlow Herbal, and I am so happy to have one of my new favorite people, Isabel De Los Rios, on this webinar with me today. She is one of the most amazing people, and I was so lucky to get to meet her at a mastermind in October. So I knew about her stuff, I've been on her website, and I knew the impact that she was making on the planet, but I had never actually met her in person until October. So she is gracious enough to actually come on and share some of her amazing wisdom as a young 38-year-old. So I just have to put that out there first, Isabel. So before I start asking you some questions, I want to just give you a kind of a more professional introduction to Isabel. So Isabel is a certified nutritionist, and she shares her food knowledge and thousands of recipes. She's also an exercise specialist who has helped over 500,000 people from around the world lose incredible amounts of weight and regain their health. That's like 500,000 people. Okay, so think about that. That's an impact, right? As a best-selling author, Isabel has earned the reputation as the go-to girl when it comes to fat-burning nutrition from several of the most popular fitness professionals around the globe. She co-founded Beyond Diet, an easy eating plan that you'll actually want to follow. That's pretty cool. Members have community support, online tools, and constant communication, which I think is super important. She is a wife and mother of 2 beautiful boys and strives to show her family how wonderful healthy living can be. She's been featured on MSN, Fox News, Lifetime, TLC, WebMD, and many more. So, Isabel, you're already on the screen, so it's always cool to watch someone listen to, because you're so sweet and modest and like all of that, but you're pretty incredible and pretty amazing. So why don't you tell us your story?
Well, thank you, Jane. It is an honor that you would invite me to speak to your list, because I know how much I cherish the people, that read my newsletters, and I know the same for you. So I started pretty young, as we were talking about, and that's because my mother and my grandmother both suffered from type 2 diabetes. I was overweight at the time. My mother was overweight. My sister was overweight. Grandmother was overweight. I mean, it just did not miss a generation. So that's really when I started in high school to deeply, deeply research nutrition, because I just didn't want to be another female in my family to be suffering from type 2 diabetes and obesity. And really, once I started diving into the information and finding things that started working, not just for me, I mean, I was young at the time, but for my mom, it was just incredible to me that you could literally solve some of these issues using food and not having to use so many medications. And it really just went from there. I went to college and I studied nutrition and exercise physiology, and I just wanted more and more and more. And it was truly through, yes, study, but experience. Then I graduated from college and started seeing clients one-on-one. And it's through all of those experiences that I was able to refine the program, which is now Beyond Diet. And what I tell everyone, I mean, I love holistic healing. I love what you do, Jane. But the principles in Beyond Diet are the foundational principles. Like, the basics that a lot of us kind of already know, but you really don't know how to implement them. Like, we were just talking about sugar and even things like artificial sweeteners and eating enough protein. And a lot of times I'll tell people these things and they're like, I know. It's like stuff but how are you going to apply it to your life? And I started young. I'm 38 now. I haven't lost that passion at all. I would say I'm probably even more passionate about it now because I have children. And I see how my children's peers, even as young as 6 years old, how they are suffering from a lot of, let's say, sinus issues, right? Or all of their friends have ear infections and my kids don't have ear infections. Or those children are very lethargic, don't really want to get going, and my kids are like 2 wild animals, So I'm even more passionate about it now because I really want the future for them to be wonderful. It's how we want it for all of our children. So that's kind of my story and what I do.
Yeah, so when you said you were young, I read that you were like a teenager. So when you first started realizing that you didn't want to be like your parents and your grandparents and that this was a family thing, the whole thing with diabetes, because I'm the same. And I can't really think of too many people who aren't in the same situation with diabetes. I mean, my mom and dad each came from 7 siblings. Every one of my dad's siblings and every one of my mom's siblings and both of their parents, all of them were diabetic. All of
Wow.
them.
Wow.
I think it's just so prevalent that there's even a magazine called Diabetic Digest or something. And you just kind of go, no, this is not acceptable. So you were like a teenager, right?
I was still in high school when I started looking into it. And it was because I went to a doctor's appointment, like just took a yearly checkup. And the doctor said to me, you know what? It's just inevitable. You're just going to get it. Like, and Jane, for me, instead of just accepting that as truth, I was like, oh no, not me. So, I mean, I can remember that day like it was yesterday because it really just sparked me into action. And I was like, I need to do something.
Wow, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Okay, well, since we're talking about that and that whole diabetes thing, most of my people know what a sugar Nazi I am. I mean, my kids tease me all the time. My kids are in their 30s, but so I have kids just a couple years younger than you.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I am a serious sugar Nazi, and I'm always throwing out tips to people. So the interesting thing to me is not just with sugar, but with artificial sweeteners, because I know how you feel about that too. And I actually read something about you online where a person was doing a review of you and they said some nice things, but then they were like, and she says that artificial sweeteners, your body doesn't know what to do with it and it stores it in the fat and it was like basically calling what you said BS. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And this was a registered dietitian who's like the person that the government goes to. And I'm like, well, yeah. So if you could give me a little bit of take on sugar, artificial sweeteners, because artificial sweeteners are not the alternative that people should be going to for sugar. So give me your take on that.
Yeah. So what I teach is that instead of trying to replace that sweet taste, we really need to reset our taste buds because, and people are usually pretty surprised when I say this. If I had to choose, if you were like, okay, I'm going to force feed you either sugar or artificial sweeteners, which one is it? I think I would choose sugar, even though it's horrible, but artificial sweeteners are worse because they are truly chemicals. Your body doesn't know what to do with them. Your liver is like literally in shock that this has come in. And it's like, now what do I do here? So, and there are a lot of studies where they have shown that artificial sweeteners will actually spike your insulin levels even higher than sugar, so insulin is a fat-storing hormone. If too much is present, like, yes, of course we need it, but if too much is present, you'll store more fat. So there are some people who stop drinking Diet Coke, which we know is loaded with artificial sweeteners, and literally lose 10 pounds in 30 days by just that one single change. So the problem is that what people are trying to do with artificial sweeteners is replace sugar with artificial sweeteners. And then when they want to get off artificial sweeteners, they want to replace it with something else. And then if that something else is not good, right, like they find some Truvia product, which a lot of those are also like processed and not good alternatives, then they're looking for something else. We need to reset the taste buds so that if you do taste artificial sweeteners, if you do taste sugar, if you do have cake, you're like, oh, wow, like that's really, really sweet. And I have a lot of people who have followed my program and other healthy programs, and they say that. They say, I've been eating healthy for 6 months, and then I had I don't know, whatever cake, and it was just so sweet. It was almost shocking. Yeah. Now, there is a transition period there, right? Your taste buds are so used to this sweet, but many times it's shorter than we think. It could be as short as 72 hours. So imagine that today, if you start on a Monday, that by Thursday, you're literally tasting things differently. Now, for some people, it may take a week, but really, like Jane, I can't even remember what I did last week. Like it just comes and goes so quickly, Yeah. For other people, it may take 30 days. Like, okay, that might be a little bit longer, but you can reset that taste. And once you do, you can use natural alternatives like a pure stevia, not a lot of the stevias that are on the market today. A lot of them heavily processed. They put other things in there like maltodextrin. Some of them I don't even know what's in them because they just label them natural flavors. You don't really know what natural flavors are.
Right.
You can use some honey in your tea, some like delicious raw honey. You can use some maple syrup in your baking. But again, if you reset the taste buds, you're not going to use 2 full tablespoons of honey. You're going to use 1 teaspoon and your tea is going to taste delicious.
Yeah. So give me a strategy for resetting your taste buds. Like what's your best strategy for that for people?
Okay. The strategy is quite horrific. I'm just kidding. It's not horrific.
You have to go sit by a shark and put your pancake by the shark.
Right? It could be something like that, but it's not. It's actually good. You have to just stop cold turkey. And the thing is, I've tried it the other way, right? I've tried to do the like small, just incremental decrease. I've tried that not just for myself. So I'm not just speaking myself. I'm talking, I've now had the opportunity to work with thousands of people. It just doesn't work because then the taste buds don't reset. But what I do with people is that I truly encourage and keep them focused along the way. So if you know what you're getting yourself into, like, okay, day 1, if you're giving up soda, not only are you missing that sweet taste, but now you have a caffeine headache. Okay, let's have some green tea. Let's even have some black tea, okay? I don't want you to have a headache. I don't want you to be in caffeine withdrawal and detoxing from sugar at the same time, okay? So we have some strategies. Let's say by day 2, you are so cranky because the artificial sweetener withdrawal is so bad or the sugar withdrawal is so bad. Now we're going to use some honey, okay? So you're having some green tea or maybe you're having herbal tea and you're going to have some honey. So you're just going to use it as a support to your body. It's not going to be the same, but your body needs some support during that time. You could use essential oils if you're open to that. You can use lemon essential oil, peppermint essential oil, which will help you to feel well during that time. You can use some lavender. Those are kind of like the basic 3 that I start people with. And by the time they get to the 3rd day, because now they have these tools, they're like, oh, okay, look at me. I actually lived to tell about it. And they can take it from there. I think it's that the first 2 or 3 days are so ugly that people just want to abandon it and be like, where is my soda? I
have a sister who's been trying so hard she's 20 years younger than me, and she's been trying so hard to stop eating sugar. It just is brutal for her. So, and I think it has to become an individual thing where you want it bad enough to go through that reset period, because I know it was probably 20 years ago when I really went on a sugar, like I hate sugar so much because of what it does to me. And almost it was about 45 days, I lost 30 pounds.
Wow.
And I'm tall and I'm an exerciser. I used to own my own gym and personal trainer and all of that. And I guess people just thought I was, I don't know, that whole big bone thing. I mean, whatever. Yeah. But I have never gained a pound back. And it's been 20 years. And this was just sugar.
And I see that time and time again. And you bring up such a good point. You do have to want it bad enough. And, I don't have a psychology degree, so I don't coach people through this process, but I do invite them to find a professional that maybe can work with them if they're using sugar to kind of fill a hole that may be about something else. So when I see that in someone, I don't necessarily attempt to coach them through it because I know what my professional skills are, and they are in nutrition and in health and exercise. Yeah. But I do encourage them that maybe that's something they want to look into, whether that's like some individual coaching with either a therapist or maybe they want to do like a group. It's something that they're trying to fill.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, what I really love about your Beyond Diet community is that there's support there. So people can go on to the community. Once you get started with your system and your Beyond Diet community, you're going to become friends and log in and get support and accountability with other people in the community.
Yeah, it's almost It's almost like Facebook for Beyond Diet. So
Awesome.
we have something called Share, and it's literally like a page where people can share all day, and it looks just like a Facebook feed, and people comment. And literally when people post and share, it's not but a few minutes when somebody jumps in there and says, you know what, I also messed up on Thanksgiving, but here are the strategies that I use. Like, hey, let's get back on together. Like, I'm here for you. And
Yeah.
then someone else will say, yes, these are the strategies that I use. So just having that sense of community is just huge, because sometimes you can't rely on the people around you to be your supportive community. They might not be ready, if,
Yeah, that's true. And sometimes you have to stand alone, like
yeah,
for years and years and years. In fact, still sometimes with my own family, I am the only one who's not doing something, eating something, or and you have to learn to be okay with that. Okay, so
yeah.
we can talk about sugar forever. So I'm going to move on to the next question.
Okay.
We could spend like an hour motivating people about stopping sugar.
Yeah.
Okay, now this is one thing that I really love that you do, because even as a person in my mid 50s, this is still something that I find I struggle just a little bit with, and it's how to get rid of belly fat. And it's not a horrible problem for me, but I exercise every day. I eat really clean, and I know I don't buy into the whole thing. When you get older, your metabolism changes, blah blah blah. I don't buy into that. I don't eat perfect, but I know you have some tips with nutrition that I really love. So I'd love
Yeah.
to share that.
So all of us have something that I call stubborn fat. So even you and I, who are very, very healthy and slim and exercise, I guarantee that anyone in our, group still has some stubborn fat, right? And you just admitted that yours is,
Yes.
on your belly. Mine seems to sit on my legs. So the thing is the foods that you need to try and eliminate are going to be your foods that potentially are causing inflammation in your body. So it's really not just the processed foods and the sugar and the artificial sweeteners, but it may be other foods that your body just doesn't love. And it could be foods that are healthy, but just not healthy for you. So I start people on a list, and it's like, okay, are you eating gluten containing foods? Now most people now have become so aware that many people just do better without gluten containing foods. It doesn't mean you have celiac, it doesn't mean you're allergic, it just means that maybe your body will process the stubborn fat faster without the gluten containing foods. So that's the breads and the pastas and the crackers and the cereal. So let's say you've already done that. Where do you go next? Next, you go to the dairy. A lot of people just don't digest dairy well. Not because it's horrible, not because it's bad. I mean, I get raw milk and I get raw cheese, but that's what my kids eat. My body just doesn't love dairy. If I have dairy, all of a sudden I will have acne like I'm, 14 again. It's just like an awful thing. So for me, that one just goes. The next one after that will be grains. Maybe, just maybe, even grains that I love and think are good foods like oatmeal and quinoa and amaranth, they might not be okay for you. Not everyone, just may not be okay for you. Like my sister is such a perfect example of these things. There are just some things that she can't eat that I can, and then vice versa, right? It's what works for her, what works for me. The next one after that, and now I'm not saying you have to give up all of these things, but it would be well worth eliminating one or two of them for like a good solid 30 days, and you'll really be able to tell. So
Yeah.
like if you give up dairy for just like 3 days, that's really not enough time for your body to kind of clean it up inside. The next one after that, which surprises people, is eggs. I love eggs. I think they're fabulous. I mean, such a great protein food, but there are some people that don't digest eggs well for whatever reason. Even the best organic eggs, some people just don't do well on them. My business partner is such a great example of this. My very good friend, Jeff, just can't do eggs. Like, how terrible, right? Like
Yeah.
eggs,
No.
eggs,
Yeah.
eggs are just so great. So although, sometimes that seems a little overwhelming for people, once they find the culprit, they are just so excited because they're like, my stomach has never been flat. And now all of a sudden I just stopped eating Greek yogurt every day and my stomach is flat. So there's like a culprit food in there and people need to figure it out. if you want to take the fast track to figure it out, you can do one of those like allergy/inflammation food tests. There's a lot of them out there. A lot of naturopaths do them. I use a company called Immunolabs. They're really great. I even found out that spinach is one of my inflammation foods.
Oh man. So is it just a blood test?
Just a blood test.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that would be kind of like the fast track way, but I've had plenty of people do it without doing it, with a blood test.
Yeah. So you mentioned something too on your tips about coconut oil.
So coconut oil, I just think everyone should be like bathing in it.
Oh, you and me both then. No
yeah.
wonder we clicked so well.
Yeah. Probably because we smelt the coconut oil, on each other. But truly phenomenal for the metabolism. Great for cravings. So if you're like hungry and you have cravings, just get a teaspoon of coconut oil, and within like 10 minutes, you will be good to go.
Okay, so how do you get people past the eating a spoonful of oil?
Well, for some people, they might have to put it in hot tea, which is delicious, by the way.
True.
So like if you do some peppermint tea, a little bit of honey or stevia and some coconut oil in there, I mean, that's like dessert.
That's my favorite. Peppermint tea and coconut oil.
It is just delicious.
Yeah.
So, because you're right, a lot of, people who are not so used to using coconut oil, but one of the best ways to ingest it is just to use it in your cooking, so steam your veggies, put coconut oil on them, or use the coconut oil to saute them. You can make a sweet potato, and instead of putting butter on it, which butter I think is great if sourced from the right place, instead of doing butter, put coconut oil and cinnamon on it.
Heaven. I know.
Delicious. I give that to my kids, and they're like fighting for more.
It's like giving them a piece of pie or something, right? Or a cookie.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah. And they are so happy with it. What are some other ways? And then I use it on my skin. And, coconut oil, I actually also used it for my son's cavity on his back tooth. I just took him for a 6-month checkup. And when you look at the x-rays side by side, the cavity is actually remineralized some, like in his tooth. And that's just putting coconut oil on it because it's killed a lot of the bacteria there in the tooth. So, I know a lot of people who are watching this are health professionals. So they probably already know the uses. If you're not, you can Google like 100 ways to use coconut oil. And there are all these like fabulous charts, on the internet on how to use it.
Cool. I love that one. Okay, so what are your favorite alternatives to popular unhealthy foods? Like if someone says, oh, I just can't think of not ever having a hamburger again, or, like when people go in and they find out if they have allergies, whether they fast track do it just by elimination, and they find that they're allergic to something that they absolutely love and they just can't imagine giving it up. So let's say, so dairy. If someone is allergic to dairy, what's one of your favorite alternatives to dairy?
Yeah, so usually what happens with dairy is the first thing people ask is about the cream in their coffee, right? So people will ask about that, or the milk in their tea. So the best things to use instead are coconut milk, almond milk, hemp milk, or just do a coconut cream and coconut oil in your coffee or tea, and that is absolutely delicious. So you can do something like that.
Perfect.
Then people ask me about cheese. That's a little bit more challenging. So what I do with alternatives is instead of focusing on all the things they can't eat anymore, I say to them, tell me all of your favorite foods and all of your favorite meals, and let's see how we can restructure these, right? So let's say, for example, somebody just found out that they can't have cheese anymore. Well, this is really hard. Like maybe you're Italian and you love something like chicken parm, right? You're like, what have you just done to me? So, there are all these wonderful ways to make a chicken parm-like, meal without the cheese. So it might be some like almond flour breading, or some other like gluten-free type breading with fresh tomato sauce and basil. Season it just the right way with some oregano. Maybe you put some thyme in there if you like that flavor, and now this chicken dish is pretty delicious. Is it exactly your chicken parm? No, it's not, but it's very tasty, so now you're really happy with that.
Yeah.
the same thing with something like a burger, so instead of thinking like, how am I going to replace it, maybe like, well, tell me some of your other favorite dinners. And maybe they're like, well, I love Chinese, specifically like a stir fry dish. And it's like, okay, I can really work with a stir fry, right? That's like peppers and onions and chicken, and maybe you can use some wheat-free soy sauce or coconut aminos. You can put that over some rice if you tolerate grains well. And now you have a dish that that person enjoys. So I would just encourage everyone not to think of it as, how do I replace this thing? Because then all you're focused on is that you can't have that thing anymore.
Yeah.
Instead of, what are some other breakfasts that I really love? What are some other snacks that I really enjoy? What are some other dinners that I really look forward to? And then you'll have some new favorites, hopefully.
Yeah, and I think that's really true, because I think we get so caught in this mindset at first that we're going to deprive ourselves.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that I won't eat and haven't eaten for a lot of years, and there's people that don't understand how I can be so, they call it strict, but I'm like, my eating life, I love to eat. Yeah. I love food. I love everything about food. And it's like, I think it's just a matter of, like you said, resetting. I love that word, because you reset your taste buds, you reset. Yeah. And when you actually go to a point where you're not having inflammation and problems. I mean, when I lost that 30 pounds, I was a fitness person. I taught 17 classes a week. I was a personal trainer. Wow. I'm 5'10", and 30 pounds can hide pretty easily on someone that's as tall as I am. But when I lost that, it was amazing. And I don't know how you would ever want to go back to foods that you enjoy just because you think that you can't live without them. So yeah. You're right. That's actually kind of an interesting question, because it's not like, oh, I have to have donuts. So what's a healthy alternative? I don't even crave donuts. I mean, if anyone ever has donuts and I'm around, I'm not even tempted. I mean, I know that would hurt me. That would make me physically feel so ill. So, yeah.
And I just heard the best thing this morning, and I have to credit Yuri Elkane. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, but I heard him on a podcast, and he said, the best diet for you is the diet that doesn't feel like a diet at all.
Yeah.
And I'm like you, Jane. Like, I love eating. Like, I have, I really do, because I'm like a scientist in the kitchen. I'm like, oh, what can I make today? And, I have my favorite meals. I have my favorite snacks. I make my own like nut butters, and, I put those together with like different fruits, like a banana. And, so I love the food that I eat. And it doesn't feel like a diet. I mean, I don't feel like I'm on a diet today. I just feel like I had a delicious soup for lunch, and I really enjoyed it. So I think people do really need to find things that they enjoy. Otherwise, it'll just be another diet.
Yeah.
And then this time next year, you'll be on yet another diet. So.
Yeah. And that's what I love about even the name of your company is Beyond Diet, 'cause it's not even about going on a diet. I think that's so crazy. Okay, this one I actually really love. Why do you believe it's important to step out of mainstream nutritional beliefs?
Because they didn't work for me when I tried them.
How about they're so messed up?
And then I realized how badly they were failing everyone else.
Yeah.
But I had one thing that happened, Jane, which I would say I was just done with mainstream nutrition. And that was after my mom got a kidney transplant. She had been on dialysis for 4 years. She got a kidney transplant. And after you get an organ transplant, you have to be on medications and steroids, right? So that your body doesn't reject the organ.
Right.
So she was on prednisone and some other medications that the doctor had told her would cause her to gain weight. Please don't worry. We'll kind of deal with that separately, but this is just what we need to do right now. So my mom was a type 2 diabetic, had lost her kidneys through that, and she then, in that moment, started following the Beyond Diet plan, right? And it had been there available to her the whole time, but she felt like she got a second chance at life, so she was going to finally follow it. Prednisone and all, medications at all, my mother lost 40 pounds during that time.
Wow.
She went to her follow-up appointments, and her doctors were like, never have we seen a transplant patient lose weight. And when they asked her, what did you do? She said, I did everything my daughter told me to do, which was the exact opposite of what your dietitian told me to do. So the dietitian was encouraging her to have like cereal in the morning with skim milk and make sure that she was on a low fat plan, and that if she was going to have bread, to have whole wheat. And I took all of that stuff away from her. I had her on like super high fat of coconut oil and avocado oil and some good healthy proteins, lots of vegetables, good fruits. I mean, even though she had diabetes, she could still have fruit. And that was another life-changing moment for me, because I was like, if I would have, or if she would have followed the dietitian's recommendations, she would have been 100 pounds heavier.
Yeah.
I mean, would her transplant have gone, would it have been so successful, right? Would she still be here today, 7 years later,
Wow.
as a healthy, 68-year-old, like running around with her 3 grandchildren? I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah, that probably just re-cemented what you were already doing.
Yes. Yeah.
It's always interesting to me when I happen to, I don't really read magazines or watch the news or anything, but when I run across something that a registered dietitian says, and it's completely opposite of what I know and believe, I'm always kind of stunned, because this is the advice that people are depending on for their health. And this is where I think really it's so important to connect people with what you do, because you're like not just education, information, but you're common sense. Because to me, the things that like to say that artificial sweeteners are safe and okay is just not common sense. The word artificial right there says everything about it.
Right.
So I think that's what I truly, truly love. You can even just see it in your face. You're a common
Thank you.
sense girl. You're just kind of like, don't take my word for it, then go look it up yourself. Because I think that a lot of people just want to have someone give them advice or give them, take this pill or just do that, without putting any of the, maybe the little bit of work in. But it becomes not even work, really.
Yeah, and I would say the beautiful thing about the internet right now is that Beyond Diet is not the only program out there that is teaching these principles, right? I mean, you could find so many just phenomenal people that I learned from, who are teaching the exact same principles. And to me, that's exciting. Like, it's not competition. To me, it's exciting, because it's almost like, let's all stand together and let everyone know, because unfortunately, I think that the bad information is still a little bit more than all the good information. I do too. So we all kind of need to be in it together, like sort of, screaming from the mountaintops, like, this is the way, this is the way, whether people hear it from me, from you, from this man, Yuri, that I heard this morning on a podcast, from, someone else. I really just hope that at some point they get that information that they need.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I feel like, in a way, I feel like things maybe with the whole obesity epidemic are going to get a tiny bit worse before they get better. But I really feel like we're kind of at a tipping point. And because, like I said, with the internet, people have access to so much information. It's like at a certain point, I think people are going to stop accepting the bland medical advice that people get. And I'm not anti-medical establishment. My dad was a doctor. My husband's dad was a doctor. And, we need our medical technology. It can do amazing things for us. But I think it's gone so far to the point where it's just not common sense anymore. And it really is big business. And so people need to go, all right, my health is my responsibility. And I think you're right. There's a lot of information out there, and we need to stand together with what we believe. And then there's a big, huge amount of personal responsibility that really come in. So,
well, and I'm glad that you mentioned that I really have nothing against the medical community, really. I mean, I am so grateful for those surgeons who got a new kidney inside my mother, right? Brilliant people. Yeah. But I think as far as really taking care of our health, we just really need to take that ownership. Yeah. And do the work and do the studying. And, people ask me, like, do you spend a lot of time in the kitchen? Well, I do, but if you think about—
you're a nutritionist too. Yeah. What do you do for a living?
I happen to love it. But if you think about, like, your grandmother or, even her grandmother, like, she spent a lot of time in the kitchen prepping her food. And I don't mean like hours at a time. I mean, if we eat dinner at 6, I'll, start cooking at like 5:15, and I'll have something great on the table, by 10 to 6, so it's not that much time. Or, throwing everything into a crock pot may take 20 minutes in the morning, but then I come home and, hey, we're all having, some delicious dinner.
Yeah. Well, you know what I think's happened is people, ever since there's been humans, that was one of the main things that people did together is they cooked and they prepared food together. Then we went through this whole phase, 50s, 60s, where it was all about making things convenient and fast for homemakers. And so they'd have to spend all the time in the kitchen, and it just evolved to fast food. So I think things are kind of coming back to the point where, I love nothing more than in the evening. I do this probably 4 or 5 times a week. I make myself a huge salad, and that's my dinner. In fact, to the point where people like look forward to on Facebook, my salad posts. It's like,
I love that.
And it's, people are like, share the recipe. Well, let's see, lettuce, tomatoes, cucumbers, celery, whatever you like, people.
Right.
But it's like, there's like a certain something about preparing food that's going to nourish you.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. And I think people are coming back to that because that's how we're supposed to do it. We're not supposed to drive through a fast food and have someone give you a bag of chemicals. Ugh. Right?
Yeah.
So,
And I have a lot of compassion for why moms do that. I get it. I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old.
I'm
like, trust me, I get it. I have those nights, I was joking around with my husband just a couple nights ago when we were leaving Taekwondo, and it was dark and it was 6 o'clock, and I was like, oh man, dinner is only like half done. And I looked at him and I said, we should just go to that Pizza Hut, and we just both started cracking up. But, we just would never,
Yeah, well, and it's because you're educated. But the thing is, that is, I can see why people do that.
Yes. Yeah.
So, okay, well, this is the deal. I love you so much, and I could talk to you forever because you are like the most like-minded spirit ever. You and I just totally click. So if you can let people know what's the best way for them to connect with you, get in touch with you, and just log on to your community in whatever way that they want to do. Let us know and I'm going to put some links below this video and some great information, but
so on Facebook, you can just look up Beyond Diet. We really have a huge following there, over 1 million likes on our page. There's a lot of people there. It's just so great. And then beyonddiet.com. And if you go on there, there's a free video on there that is full of information. I mean, bring your pen and paper, because even just the information in the video, you could just start there. So I always tell everyone that is step 1. Go to beyonddiet.com. Just, make yourself a peppermint tea with coconut oil and sit there, watch it, take notes, because it will be the first couple steps you need to make the change. And that's it. That's where I am.
Okay. Well, I think you're awesome, Isabel. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to share your amazingness with us.
Thank you, Jane. It's my pleasure.
Okay. Talk to you soon.